All right, so today we're diving into a story about a country that was pushed right to the absolute edge. I mean, we're talking about total economic collapse, a president who literally campaigns with a chainsaw, and a radical high-stakes experiment that has the whole world holding its breath.
Okay, look at this number, 211.4%. Let that sink in. This isn't some abstract economic figure. That was Argentina's annual inflation rate at the end of 2023. I mean, just try to imagine the price of everything you buy, your groceries, your gas, more than tripling in 1 year. This wasn't just a crisis, you guys. This was a full-blown economic meltdown, and it was the perfect setup for a revolution.
And then came the new president, Javier Milei, with this bombshell. There is no money. Just flat out. 4 simple, brutal words that laid the country's reality completely bare. It was his way of saying, everything you thought you knew, it's over. The party's done.
So Argentina's endless crisis. You gotta understand, this collapse didn't happen overnight. It wasn't some sudden storm. Nope. It was more like a 25-year slow-motion train wreck, a long, grinding decay that has basically defined an entire generation.
So how on earth did one of the world's once richest nations get here? I mean, really, how? To get a handle on the shock therapy happening right now, we have to rewind the tape. We've got to go back to the original sin, that moment the system first shattered and left a scar on the national psyche that, frankly, has never really healed.
Okay, so here's where it all begins. The year is 2001, and the government makes a single decision that's going to inflict this deep, deep psychological trauma on the whole country. This is the ground zero of the crisis we see today.
They called it El Corralito, the Little Corral, and the name is just perfect. To stop everyone from pulling their money out all at once, the government basically built a fence around the banks and locked the gates. Bam. Just like that. Your life savings, whether they were in pesos or even US dollars, trapped. You couldn't get them. It was, for all intents and purposes, a confiscation of millions of people's wealth. And just like that, overnight, trust in the entire financial system was completely obliterated.
And the people? They exploded. The cry on the streets was, que se vayan todos, which means let them all go. And listen, this wasn't just vote the bums out. No, this was a complete, gut-level rejection of the entire political class. Every single one of them.
And those scars from 2001, they never faded. I mean, this event fundamentally rewired how Argentinians think about money and government. Trust in banks? Forget about it. Faith in their own currency, the peso? Totally gone. The US dollar became the only thing you could count on. And something else happened. People started seeing tax evasion not as a crime, but as a way to fight back against a state they saw as a predator.
All right, so from the ashes of that 2001 collapse, a new power rises, a political dynasty actually, the Kirchners, and they came in with a totally different idea for how to fix this broken country.
So what was the Kirchner recipe? Well, first, you get a little bit lucky. They rode this massive global boom in soy prices. Then, you take all that cash and you build a huge paternalistic state. We're talking massive subsidies, nationalizing private companies, the whole 9 yards. And the secret ingredient, when the commodity money started to dry up, you just fire up the money printers. And what this did, and this is key, is it built a whole political ecosystem. Unions, businesses, politicians that were completely hooked on government spending.
And this ecosystem, this is what Javier Milei would eventually point his chainsaw at. He called it La Casta, the caste. Think of it as this entrenched establishment, this powerful web of politicians, union bosses, and business owners who got rich and powerful by feeding off the state. They were the insiders.
Well, as you can probably guess, a model built on printing money can't last forever. It eventually led to stagnation, so Argentina decided to try something different, a more moderate, gradual approach. And guess what? It somehow made things even worse. I mean, catastrophically worse.
So you see, Argentina got stuck in this political ping-pong match between two bad ideas. On one side, you had President Macri trying these slow, gradual reforms, but he paid for it with huge loans from the IMF. That blew up in a currency crisis. So the country swings all the way back to the other side, back to old-school Peronism, turning on the money-printing machine to full blast. And that's what gave them that 211% hyperinflation. After trying moderation and trying populism and seeing both fail spectacularly, a lot of people started to think, you know what, maybe the only thing left is to blow the whole thing up.
And into this chaos steps a figure unlike any other, Javier Milei. I mean, where do you even start? He's an anarcho-capitalist economist, a TV celebrity they nicknamed El Loco, the madman.
And he literally walks on stage at rallies with a chainsaw, promising to tear down the state, destroy the caste, and somehow he becomes the world's first ever libertarian president.
So now we get to the shock therapy itself. Milei gets into office and does not waste a single second. He immediately unleashes that chainsaw plan, a complete blitz of reforms designed to rip up the old Argentine economy by its roots.
But how do you do that when your party has almost no seats in Congress? Well, his primary weapon wasn't going to be laws. It was this, an emergency mega decree. Basically, he knew he couldn't get anything passed the normal way, so this was his only shot. It was pure political shock therapy, a way to try and dismantle decades of state control in one fell swoop.
And the effect on inflation? It was just immediate and unbelievably dramatic. Look at this. Monthly inflation was at a crazy 25.5% in December, and then boom, it just nosedives. The chainsaw, it seemed, had actually worked. It cut the head clean off the hyperinflation dragon.
But, okay, let's look at the full macroeconomic scorecard, because this is where the story gets really complicated. The good news? Annual inflation got absolutely crushed. But now for the bad news, the price for that victory. The poverty rate is still painfully high, and unemployment hasn't really budged. So yeah, they balanced the books, but the social cost has been just immense.
So yeah, that victory over inflation came at a really steep price. And the bigger battle here, the fight for Argentina's soul between Milei and the Caste, is nowhere near over.
And this slide really gets to the heart of the political standoff. On one side, you've got Milei's chainsaw. He could use his executive power to slash spending, cut subsidies, no problem. But on the other side, you have La Casta's wall. The moment he tried to make deep structural changes, the stuff needed to actually create jobs and grow the economy, they blocked him. Powerful unions, the courts, Congress, they built a wall and stopped him cold.
So what does this adjustment feel like for the average person in Argentina? Well, it's been incredibly painful. All those subsidies for things like electricity and buses, gone. So prices have just soared. Get this, in a country that is world famous for its steak, people are eating less beef now than at any time since the absolute depths of the 2001 crisis. That tells you everything. The government balanced its budget essentially by letting inflation eat away at salaries and pensions.
And what's happening now is this dangerous split in the country. It's what economists call a K-shaped recovery. Imagine the letter K. One arm goes up, one arm goes down. The capital, Buenos Aires, is on the arm going up. It's starting to see some benefits. But the provinces, which used to live on money from the central government, they're on the arm going down, falling even deeper into recession.
So when you step back and look at this timeline, you can see the whole crazy 25-year story. It starts with that Corralito collapse in 2001 that shattered public trust. That leads to the Kirchner era and the creation of the Caste. Then you have years of failed policies that end in hyperinflation. And that, finally, opens the door for Milei's shock therapy. It's an epic journey from one disaster to this incredibly risky, high-stakes gamble on a cure.
So, is this the shock that finally breaks Argentina's cycle of failure? Or is it just the most violent pendulum swing we've seen yet? We know the bleeding has stopped. Hyperinflation is dead, but the biggest question, the one that hangs over all of Argentina, is a tough one. Can the patient actually survive the cure?